Hello, so on the bench today I have the Central Machinery 5-ton, 110 volt, 12 amp electric log splitter. Now, I bought this one about 10 years ago from Harbor Freight, and oddly enough they still sell a slightly updated version of this model for about the same price that I paid 10 years ago. Now you can also buy what appears to be the same splitter on Amazon, and I'll leave some links down in the description below. The Amazon version has just some minor cosmetic differences, but they claim that theirs is a 6-ton splitter versus this one's a 5-ton splitter, but I think that might just be differences in marketing claims. Now this one has a travel length of about 17 inches and a maximum log diameter of 10 inches, although I've exceeded that maximum log diameter spec many times over. So operating the splitter is super simple. Down here I have the power switch mounted to the control box, which drives the electric motor here. The electric motor then drives the hydraulic pump. And then up here I have this lever that controls the ram. So when I pull the lever down, this ram then will slide this way, and it'll push the log into the wedge, which will split the log. And when I let go of the lever, that'll allow the ram to slide back to the left, and it'll end up here in its original position. And by the way, this lever, you can unscrew it and remove it rather easily, and that allows you then to store the splitter in its upright position. And then over here I have this little thumb screw. This is actually a little vent for the hydraulic system, and you want to have this closed when you're storing the splitter or moving it around. But when you're in operating mode, you want to have this cracked open a bit to allow it to vent. If you forget to do that, the splitter will lose power rather quickly. And then down here I have this little screw here. This is a dipstick basically for checking the hydraulic fluid level, and the splitter even came with this little Allen wrench here to remove that dipstick. So that's pretty much it. It's fairly straightforward. So this older version of the splitter, it has just a standard push button on-off switch to control the motor, which means I push it in once to turn the motor on, and when I'm completely done, I push it in again to turn the motor off. And that allows for a one-handed operation, so I can stand way back here to operate the ram. My face isn't right up here by the action, and that means that I'm less likely to get hit in the face with flying wood debris. Now the new version of this splitter, they've replaced that standard on-off switch with a momentary push button switch, which means that I have to hold the button in to operate the motor, which requires two hands of operation, one to push in that button and one to operate the ram, which means that my face is closer to the action here. Now I assume that they've done that to prevent anyone from getting their free hand crushed while the tool's operating, but it also brings your face in closer, and I'm sure it increases your chances of getting hit in the face with flying debris. Also, there's a fan that sits on the end of the motor shaft down here, and with the old solution, that fan just spins all the time, whereas with the new one, it's only spinning when you're pushing in the button splitting wood. I think with the older solution, that fan is going to help to cool off the motor better because it's always spinning up, and that probably helps to improve the reliability a bit. So I think if I were to buy a new version of this splitter, I would probably replace that momentary push button switch with just a standard on-off switch, and just remember not to get my free hand in the way here when I'm splitting wood. And then down here mounted to the side of the motor is the motor cooling fan underneath this black shroud here. And once in a while I've had wood chips, I guess they make their way in through this side and get into the fan, and so if that happens, you just have to remove this shroud. There's only, I think, 3 little screws to take off the shroud. It's really easy, and then you can take out any wood chips. And that's about the only maintenance I've ever had to do to this in the last 10 years. So the power switch here is really the only component on the entire splitter which has ever given me any trouble at all. What happens is when you power it on, it's working fine, but when you push this in again, it should pop out to turn off. You can see there it's stuck. Now it doesn't do that 100% of the time, And to get it out, I can just coax it out with my finger, and that'll shut off the machine. So it's not a big problem. Also, I can spray a bit of lube in there, and that'll help it from sticking a little bit. I've taken off the collar. This used to be over the switch, and I had to take this off and the protective cap in order to allow my fingers in there to pull the switch out if I need to. And this is fairly representative of a lot of Chinese equipment that I've had in the past, which is they did a great job on all the primary components. You know, the frame is stout. It can split wood larger in diameter than the spec states, and you know, the motor is nice and stout, and I've never had any problems with the hydraulic system. It's never leaked in 10 years. So overall, you know, all the major components work great. It's just this switch here, and you know, for another $1 or so, they could probably put a really nice switch, but instead they put a really cheap, flimsy, low-quality switch on there. So that's just a minor gripe, and it wouldn't cost a lot or take a lot of time in order to fix that. And I probably should do that. I just never got around to it. So while it's in operation, the splitter's not super loud, but it's also not quiet, and I'm trying to preserve whatever hearing I have left. So I always wear ear protection, and I don't like getting splinters in my hands, so a good set of thick gloves is usually a good idea. And you know, sometimes the logs, they split violently, especially if they have a twist or knots. And I actually have been hit in the face with wood shrapnel before using this splitter. So from my perspective, eye protection is more of a requirement than it is a recommendation if you want to maintain your eyesight while using this guy. And I should point out that while this isn't a very big splitter, it's a lot heavier than you might think. You know, it has a nice stout frame and a big motor and heavy hydraulics. And lifting it up here to get it up on the bench by myself probably wasn't my brightest idea. But anyway, let's go outside. We'll split some logs, and I'll show you what this tool can do. Okay, so this is what I'm dealing with today. All this wood here needs to be split. I have several different species. This here I think is maple, and over here is cherry wood, and I even have a little bit of Douglas fir in here. There's a Douglas fir log, and there's one down in there. And it's in various stages. I think all this wood was dead standing, and so some of it is newer than others. Some of it's completely dried out, some of it's not. And I was noticing down here, we got some that's even rotten, and those will have to be removed and thrown out. And then over here, I have a stack of Douglas fir. Now this was cut more recently. This was a live tree that fell over, and I cut it up about 3 weeks ago, thereabouts. So I have all different sizes here, from about, that's about 3.5. That's about 3 inches. That's probably the smallest one. And then down here, that's about 12 inches. So that's what I'm dealing with. I think I have a good variety of logs to split. So this will be a pretty good test of the Harbor Freight splitter. Okay, as you can see, the dried logs that were sitting here have all been split and moved. They're now stacked over there on the firewood racks. And over here, the green wood, I've filled up my utility trailer here, and the stack of round logs is now a stack of split logs. And that was all done with the small Harbor Freight 5-ton electric splitter. I had no issues whatsoever with log diameters up to 12 inches. Now this splitter will split larger logs. I don't know exactly what the upper limit is, but just to give you an idea, I usually cut firewood with an 18-inch bar, and I use this 5-ton splitter almost exclusively. Now it does depend on the species and whether it's wet or dry, and if it has any twist or knots in it. And it does sometimes struggle on larger logs, but what I found is if the log will fit up here without deforming these side plates too much, it'll generally split it. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of what the smaller splitter is capable of. 10 years ago, before I bought the splitter, I was using this axe here to split firewood. And since I bought the splitter, I've used it almost exclusively for almost all my firewood needs. Now, on occasion, I will get a larger round, which just won't fit up here, or in some cases, the tool is just not quite powerful enough to split the larger things, in which case I'll just bring out the axe. And usually I can split it once with the axe and then put half the log up here and split it the rest of the way with the splitter. So it's been a really useful tool. I think it's built well. I think it's at the right price point, and just does its job. Again, the only problem I've had is with this power switch, but that's a pretty simple and cheap fix to make. So I think this would be really useful for most people, provided that you have 110 volts nearby, and provided that you're not expecting to split a lot of larger hardwoods. I think you would be fine with a splitter like this. So that's about all I have for this video, and I hope this was useful, and we'll see you next time.